You should know by now, Pat. Nope.
Hey, Mike, what happened? Just noticed this.
No.
Hey, Dawn. So did you catch that when you do your presentation? Just look. Make sure you're looking at this. Yeah. Well, look at it on here as opposed to trying to see it. Now yours is better than mine. Mine looks terrible. You're good. All right. Yeah. Mine.
We're going to call the meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Participation in government students. We're going to invite you to the front of the auditorium so you can participate more readily in the meeting.
Extra credit for the front row.
Good, because you'll be quick.
Try. I can't have him show me up.
The meeting in 2 weeks is very light agenda.
Thank you. So we're going to move ahead with the meeting, and I'm going to request a moment of silence for Doretha Crosby, who was a former employee of the North Syracuse Central School District. Okay, thank you. I'd like to welcome Mr. Alistair Reed, Assemblyman. We have a reading challenge certificates and merit presentation. Should be.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me here. The reason we're here is because we issued a summer reading challenge which requires the student to read for at least 15 minutes a day for 40 days during the summer. And the reason we do this is because the data shows that kids that read during the summer do a lot better the next school year. So I am going to read the names of those students who said they'd be here tonight, and if they could come up and get their certificate, after we're all done, we'll go outside, and if you want to take some pictures, we'll take a group picture and some individual pictures. Okay? And also, at the end, I'll ask if there's anybody who showed up who didn't tell us they were coming, because we have all the certificates just in case. Okay, Sierra Clary. Kaylee Curry. Kevin Greer. Philip Greer. Justice Johnson. Johnny Lisi. Alexander Shetler. Way back there. Troy Toscano. Angelina Ciferrata. Is there anybody else who came and we didn't call their name out? Yeah. Probably the last one. Take your time. It's all right. Yeah, she would show up. No? Well, if we don't have it here, we'll make sure that we get it to you. But in any event, congratulations and good job. Thanks for being patient. We'll bring it back. Okay, well, thanks, everybody, for taking the time. I think it's important that if they actually do what we ask them to do, that we make sure they realize we recognize that. And I want to thank the school for doing this every year, and especially the parents, because I'm sure they played a big part in making sure everybody read. Oh, you found it. All right. Thanks a lot.
And then just a reminder that Mr. Sturpey would like you guys out back for a picture as well. Okay, then we move into another presentation, our School Administrator Appreciation Day. School administrators, the leaders of public schools, have a positive impact on students, staff, parents, and members of the community at large. School administrators energize students and staff, respond to students' needs, empower others, and recognize and celebrate achievements. School administrators, whether they work directly in a school building or at a district level, share the common goal of providing the foundation, environment, and professional learning community in which all students can learn and learn well. School administrators are entrusted with the well-being of our community's most precious members, the children. The administrators of the North Syracuse Central School District are professionals of the highest caliber. Students, parents, staff, and community members recognize, applaud, and appreciate their efforts to provide children with a 5-star quality education. To honor the administrative staff of the North Syracuse Central School District and their accomplishments and efforts on behalf of our community's most valuable resource, the children, I, Pat Swoboda, President of the North Syracuse Central School District Board of Education, on behalf of the rest of the board, express our deepest gratitude to our administrators and proclaim November 5th, 2015, School Administrator Appreciation Day. The recommended action is that we declare this day School Administrator Appreciation Day in North Syracuse Central School District. Do I have a motion? Ms. Scanlon, second. Mr. Maurizio, all in favor? That is unanimous. We have somebody that can take these back to the rest of your unit. We have several of you here.
If we could just have the administrators that are here this evening come on up front to be recognized. Kathy Wheeler, Principal, Cicero Elementary. Chris Lay, current Principal at Lakeshore Road Elementary School. Linda Jackson, Assistant Principal at Roxborough Road Middle School. Dave Shaw, Principal at Roxborough Road Middle School, and Matt Matella, Principal at Bear Road. I'd also like to recognize people in the cabinet. Dan Bowles, Associate Superintendent for Teaching and Learning. Thank you, Dan. I'll come around. Donald Chinsky, Assistant Superintendent for Instruction. And all the way down here, Don Keegan, Associate Superintendent for Business Services. And Jason Nephew, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources. Thank you to all of you for all you do every day.
Okay, now we move into our third presentation, Response to Intervention, RTI. Ms. Wilachinsky, Mr. Matola, Ms. Wheeler.
Thank you to Kathy Wheeler and Matt Matala for joining me this evening to share with you our response to intervention plan which you had included in your board packet with you. We're not going to go over the finite details of that, but we're going to give you a gist of what's in there and what you're approving in that plan. One of the things that you know we were involved in last year was response to all kids learning. And through STLE last year, which is Strengthening Teacher Leadership Effectiveness, we had Kathy and Matt head an RTI bucket, which is our initiative for the district. Unfortunately, we couldn't continue that same work this year. However, these two have continued it within their buildings along with the other elementary principals and middle school principals and junior high principal as well. So the idea is to meet the needs of all of our learners. This is an example of response to intervention, what the definition of it is. The most important line is the very last line, that it is not a program, it's a process. And I think we have to keep that in mind as we move forward, and Matt and Kathy will share with you how they have moved forward within their buildings. Some of the ways to respond to this intervention are the big three. So you take a look at what students are doing through the data that we collect, which is the universal screening that we collect. We do universal screening K through 8. And the high school also does some screening as well, using some of the same. Matt will go into more of the interventions that we use, but we do a universal screening. Remember that RTI is a mandate K4. However, in this district, we have expanded it to a K8 look where we universally screen all kids 3 times a year to see how they're doing instructionally. So we take a look at their data, and then we come together as a team to talk about how we're going to problem solve for the areas we see that are in need, and we talk about the interventions that need to happen to help our students be successful. This is the example of the pyramid, and if you recall in your understanding of RTI, there are 3 tiers, and we flipped the pyramid upside down. So Tier 1 belongs to the classroom teacher. That's just good, basic, solid classroom instruction that every teacher has to bring into the classroom daily. Tier 2 would be your AIS program and looking at kids and bringing them into small groups. And then Tier 3, AIS and or special area, special ed teachers who might bring in children that need one-to-one or small, very small groups, 2, 3 at the most. In there is all of that detail is in the RTI plan that we have included in your board packet for you, and it talks about the frequency and intensity at each of those levels. And I'm going to move this to Matt.
Thank you. As you heard mentioned previously, data is one of the most essential foundational pieces of a response to intervention program. And that really allows us to be very reflective as educators in terms of how we prepare and present information to students, and then also what we can do to help all of our students ensure that they are learning at appropriately high levels. So the data piece is an essential component of this. In our districts, one of the things we're really striving for is to help all of our students to achieve success, not just the middle level students or the low level students, help to bring them up, but all students, including those who are at or even above grade level. And in our district, we have several data sources that we use on a pretty regular basis. Some you're familiar with, you've heard us talk about the Ames Web reports and the testing that we do during our BPT presentations each year. We also use the Fontes and Pinnell benchmarking at the elementary school, along with our kindergarten baseline testing, our BAS testing. All classrooms use various forms of formative and summative assessments to gather information about students and their progress. At our middle levels, we're using the SRI and SMI, which is Scholastic Math and Reading Inventories. We also have everybody's favorite, the state assessments, and also Regents results. All those are various data points that we use as educators to help us identify the strengths for our students, the strengths for us as practitioners, and areas that we can help them to grow in. And what is it that we do with the data? Once it's not just to give students more tests. We know we don't need to test students any more than we already do. But the key thing is what we're doing with that. And again, we use that to be very reflective about our own practices. about ways that we as educators can improve our teaching strategies and presentation of information to students. So we use that to benchmark and assess where they're at in terms of grade level standards and progress. We use it to help identify areas of strength and areas for growth. We also look for any commonalities among students. So we know there's a group of students in third grade at Bear Road who need extra support in a given concept. We can use that information to group those students accordingly and provide some intensive supports to help those students reach a level of proficiency with that skill and concept, so they're not just kind of left behind and left floundering. And then one of the key pieces of this data conversation that's happening at Bear Road, at Cicero, and at the other buildings is that we share strategies that work. And Kathy's going to kind of get into this a little bit more with her talk on PLCs, but having teachers have conversations, strategies that work. So in my third grade classroom, I taught a lesson on this and it really went successfully. Let me share with you, my colleagues, what worked. Or I taught this lesson and it bombed. My kids just didn't learn it. Somebody help me. Give me an idea that maybe worked. And Kathy's going to talk a little bit more about that when we get into PLCs.
So the professional learning communities are the way that we take all of this data and work together collaboratively to analyze the data, figure out what it means for our students, and then to give that RTI, give those interventions, and see how students respond to it. In a PLC, now all of the buildings are doing PLCs at some level, in some ways, at some grade levels, in some fashion. But we're all just getting into it. We're all just starting. So, for example, at the elementary schools, a grade level would get together. So all of the first grade teachers would look at the benchmark data. They'd look at how their students are doing with sight words, with letter sounds, with reading comprehension, whatever they're looking at, and they'll look at all of the students. So they're not just Matt's students, Kathy's students, Dawn's students. They're all of our kids. We look at how all of them are doing. As Matt said, we look at what groups are doing consistently, and we regroup our students to provide interventions. In some schools, in some grade levels, they're getting together in PLCs and analyzing the data and providing RTI themselves based on what they've decided as a group that the students need. And in some areas, they're having RTI blocks where students are being shared out among the whole grade level for those interventions. What we ask at a PLC are these four basic questions. What do we want students to know? How will we know if they've learned it? How will we respond if they don't learn it? And then how do we extend learning for students who already have it? And those are the elements that we look at during a PLC. It's a process. It's ongoing. We come back every week. Every week we look at kids. Every week we look at data. We create common assessments that we give to all the students, and then we create interventions that we give to various groups of students. And then we come back the next week and talk about how they're doing again. So it's an ongoing process that we use to identify what students need. At some schools, we're calling it what I need. It's win time, additional time in the day, in addition to our core Tier 1 instruction, so that every student gets what they need. Questions?
Yeah, just on that last point, if I may, because that's what I was wondering when I was looking at the Tier 1, 2, and 3 in the, I'm sorry, in the PDF. Is this on? On the PDF, so when you talk about that win period, you're grouping them by skill, I'm assuming?
Yep.
And then you have the ones, I'm sorry, the important piece was the ones that don't need the intervention there. That's where the enrichment
Where
piece
some
goes
enrichment
on.
time comes in.
Okay.
So that, as I said, it's in addition to Tier 1
Right, so
instruction.
nobody's missing
So
Tier 1.
nobody's missing core instruction. Every student is getting my math lesson from me today. But at the end of the day, or some other time during the day, groups of students are getting an additional lesson from Matt because they didn't get it from me. Or they're getting something from Dawn because they already got it before they even had me. So she's doing extension activity. So it's a time for every student, regardless of what level they're at, to get. And some grade levels are doing, and some schools are doing math, some are doing reading, some are doing writing. It depends. on what their kids need, what the focus is for that year.
Thank you.
I just want to thank all three of you for sharing this tonight, and also for Kathy and Matt being leaders with us. You've really provided models in the district that are working, that are making a difference for students. It shows that we're really concentrating on meeting the needs of all learners, and others are looking to you for assistance with the model because you are leading this. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have fund balance and budget assumption presentation.
Good evening. Tonight I want to talk a little bit about, or we want to talk a little bit about the initial stage of our budget process. And one of the first things we like to do is make some assumptions, and we're going to talk about several areas. The first two are fund balance and reserves, and they really speak to the financial condition of the district. What's our financial strength? The next thing we look at is some economic indicators, and these are very superficial. You'll see when I get to the slide, but they basically give us a sense of what's the local economy like, what's the economic strength of our community. And then we'll talk a little bit about the most significant revenue items and expenditure items that we have a little bit of information about at this time, and we'll close with an overview of our budget timeline. So the fund balance. What is the fund balance? The fund balance is the district's savings account, and there's a lot of pieces. So if you pulled out our financial statements, you'd see a number of components of the fund balance. And as you see, I'm going to point to a number here, the total general fund balance of $12,715,000. That's the total fund balance, but almost half of that is already spent or reserved for specific items. I'll talk about the amount that's restricted for reserves. The portion that is available savings is this unassigned fund balance. And you can see on the bottom of the page here, we've broken that out and shown you that as a percentage of our 15-16 budget. It represents about 4.71% of the budget. So how do we get there? The district over the years has certainly worked hard to be responsible with the way we spend our money. And every year we've had a little bit of extra revenues, spent a little less money than we expected. But the big impact on our fund balance in recent years, which I'll show you the favorable variance in revenues for 2014-15 of $2.7 million. The biggest factor there is that we received kindergarten conversion aid, and due to the way state aid came into the district, meaning we got a larger increase last year than we expected, we didn't need to spend all that conversion aid. So the excess aid rolled into our fund balance. Our capital fund, and they will not support the general fund budget. So I include those up there just so people are aware of that. On the expenditure side, we show our major components of expenditures. I'll start with health benefits. We expect there to be a lower increase in health benefits this year. We don't know whether it'll be an increase or not over the prior year, but it appears that there'll be an increase, but it'll be lower than expected due to some of the changes we've made. We recently changed our third-party health benefits administrator, and we think that's going to help us with those costs, as well as our bargaining units all made concessions relative to their contribution rates, and that's a positive impact on health benefits. In terms of retirement costs, although I've indicated TRS is unknown at this time, this week we expect the TRS to come out with a range of costs for our teachers' retirement system, and we expect that range will be lower than we're currently paying, so we anxiously await that information. The employee retirement system, which covers all of our non-certified employees, has put out a range. We currently fund at 18.2% of payroll. It looks like that range will go down to between 15 and 15.5%. Again, good news. Our salary increases, many of our bargaining unit contracts have been settled. As everybody's aware, for the previous 3 years, our bargaining units have received, on average, less than 1% a year for the last 3 years. We settled contracts, or the settled contracts indicate that next year's increase will be 3% for the 16-17 school year for most of our bargaining units. Fuel costs, although we're all going to the pump and probably all equally shocked at how low gas prices are, we have to keep an eye on that market. It's a volatile market. And there are two things that you should know. We've adjusted our fuel prices, continue to adjust our fuel prices as best we can. But because of transportation aid, we have to focus on the net of aid savings. And that means that if gas prices go down, we're going to get less transportation aid. And so the impact on the general fund budget will be simply that amount net of aid. We'll be keeping an eye on that as we work toward completing our budget. You may remember last year, the district entered into a 3-year supply agreement. And so energy prices are favorable. We have adjusted our budget accordingly for the 15-16 school year, and so we don't anticipate significant change in energy costs as we go into next year, and that's what we know about energy at this time. And we're always working with BOCES to evaluate opportunities to control costs through using BOCES services, and we'll keep you posted as we go through our BOCES budgeting process. That's pretty much all the updates I have for the budget at this point. Just looking at the calendar, the next big event will be later this month, kind of kicking off the budget process with our principals and directors and cabinet and our Board of Education subcommittee members. And we'll be working on that and looking forward to meeting again with the board in January and giving you an update. Any questions?
The only question that I have is the Smart Schools money.
Yes.
We've had very little information about it.
Yeah.
So is this something that we are going to anticipate to have to spend money and then receive money as a reimbursement?
Thank you for asking that question, because it's probably worth a 2-minute explanation. We are working with our IT folks and a core group here at the district to finalize our Smart Schools calendar of events. And right now, tentatively, that calendar of events has us coming to the board in December to give you a detailed status of our spending plan. We anticipate, again, very tentatively in early February, submitting our spending plan to the state, seeking approval in hopes of getting our first installment of Smart Schools money in time for the beginning of the 16-17 school year, so we could work on technology projects such as wireless and other infrastructure things, one-to-one technology and whatnot. So we look forward to doing our presentation in December to the board so we can give you more information. But every day we learn a little bit more from state ed and from the state on how that money is going to be dispersed. But at this time, we don't anticipate a cash flow problem caused by the way that money will come to us. We think we're going to be able to make expenditures and being reimbursed by the state in a reasonable period of time.
So do you anticipate that freeing up other monies in general fund then?
Yeah, I think to the point I was trying to make earlier is I don't see any impact on the general fund positively or negatively relative to Smart Schools. I think it's going to be a real shot in the arm for the district in terms of technology,
right, but
it's not going to help us on the general fund side. I don't think it's going to hurt us either. Good question. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. I look forward to our next update.
Thank you. Okay, there are no comments from the audience. Do we have any board committee reports or comments?
I just want to say that the next policy committee meeting is next week, November 9th.
Thank you.
And the legislative committee is going to be meeting next Wednesday, November 18th at 5:30.
Thank you. Any other comments? Nope. I'm just going to mention that this previous week, Mike and I had the opportunity to go to our Central New York State School Boards Association. It's a President's Roundtable. There was a presenter that was a lot more positive than I. His presentation was on being a little more positive and being more appreciative of our staff, which was kind of goes hand in hand with our presentation this evening. Also, for me, one of the highlights of that evening was not necessarily the presenter, but it was having another school board president actually compliment our school district on our facilities, specifically our stadium, as well as being able to kind of flaunt the achievements of our students on, in the gym, on the field, when it comes to, our football team's growth this past year, our swimming team's growth over the past 10, 15 years, our cheerleaders, so on and so forth. We have several accomplishments that we can be proud of, and I want to point out that at that roundtable, other people in Central New York are recognizing our achievements as well. Ms. Speech?
Okay, just a couple things to celebrate. Mr. Sabota just mentioned girls swimming. CNS completed their first ever 10-0 girls swimming and diving season, so congratulations to them. And as the fall sports season is winding down, right now as we speak, and I have not gotten a text update, but expect that I will shortly, boys soccer is playing Baldwinsville at Fulton High School for the sectional final right now. So we wish them well and hope for good news later this evening. And boys volleyball, CNS will be playing in the sectional semifinals this Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. at CNS High School. So congratulations to all of our fall athletic teams, and especially those that have really achieved quite a good status here. I also want to mention that we are very proud that Tiffany Lane of Cicero North Syracuse High School has been recognized as one of 2 state nominees to the Presidential Scholarship Program for the 127th District. And Assemblyman Sturpey is responsible for helping out with this. And he notes that Tiffany's strength in overcoming challenges while excelling in academics with a rigorous course load speaks volumes about her character. So congratulations to Tiffany, and we will be cheering her on as she waits to hear if she moves on further with that recognition. I do want to mention one other piece of information. Last Tuesday evening, we had a public information session. We had 58 people there, which is more than we've ever had in the years that I can remember for an information session or a listening session, which is good, but it barely puts a dent in the school community, and we're hoping to have another one on February 10th with an even bigger turnout. And the focus was meeting the needs of all learners, inclusion for all. We are moving forward with our study on how to better service special education students, as well as meeting the needs of all learners. And some cabinet members and Mr. Florio are in the process of visiting the staff in every building. We're almost halfway through the buildings to talk about this plan and how to communicate where we're going with this to parents. So more to follow in the future with that as we move forward. Thank you.
Just 2 things. One thing that I did want to mention was our band, our field band, also came in second place for large schools, Class 2. So that's something. But then we also need to go back to presentations. I made a mistake. We need to acknowledge receipt of the 2016-2017 fund balance as well as the budget assumptions. Do I have a motion to accept that? Mr. Farfalia, Mr. Harrington, all in favor? That is unanimous. So we move into routine action items. Do I have a motion to accept A, B, C, and D as a group? Mr. Farfalia, Mr. Schuster as a second. All in favor? That is unanimous. Okay, the corrective action plan under discussion action items. Don Keegan will discuss the corrective action plan.
As you know, each year our auditors complete the audit and they make observations about opportunities for us to make improvements in our business office operations and throughout the district in fiscal matters. And so we've taken their recommendations and we've commented and put some thought into how we may implement them. And now this gets submitted to, or has been submitted to New York State, and we just need the board to accept those.
Do I have a motion for that? Mr. Leon, Ms. Cash, all in favor? That's unanimous. We have had some discussion with the Syracuse Regional Airport Authority Board. We have a representative spot on that board. Scott has previously served for with the Hancock Field Committee in the past. So it is my recommendation that we move forward with placing Scott in that position to represent us because he's familiar with some of the parties involved with this. Do I have a motion to accept that? Ms. Cash, Mr. Leon is a second. All in favor? That's unanimous. We are going to amend the July 6th annual organizational meeting due to the fact that we appointed a new claims auditor. Do I have a motion for that? Mr. Schuster, second Mr. Farfalia, all in favor? That's also unanimous. The surplus of non-marketable equipment, do we have any need for explanation for that? Or do I have a motion to accept? Mr. Harrington, Ms. Scanlon is the second. All in favor? That's unanimous. There's a gift from Syrtec Incorporated has donated $1,000 per the North Syracuse Central School District Scoreboard Sponsorship Contract. These funds will be placed in the district's special aid fund. Recommended action is to approve this resolution. Mr. Farfalia, second Mr. Schuster, all in favor? That's unanimous. We also have another gift. Two gifts. The North Syracuse Education Foundation has donated $2,345 to the North Syracuse Central School District to reinstate the North Syracuse Junior High Jazz Band Advisor due to a donation for the 2015-16 school year. There are financial donations totaling $75 were made to the Main Street Early Education Program in memory of Mary Vaughn, a special education teacher who has recently passed away. The recommended action is to accept with gratitude the two above gifts. Do I have a motion? Ms. Scanlon, Mr. Leon, all in favor? That's unanimous. Yes.
I just want to add, in terms of the jazz band advisor, the donation comes through the North Syracuse Education Foundation, as was just stated, but 2/3 of that money did come from a donor who prefers to remain anonymous. I'm not even certain who it is, but we refer to people when they do this as angel donors because it's like something just arrived that allowed us to continue this wonderful performing group. So thank you very much to whoever that person is.
With the acknowledgement of the jazz band monies from NSEF, we have to move forward with G and reinstate the North Syracuse Junior High School Jazz Band Advisor for the 2015-16 school year. Do I have a motion? Mr. Maurizio, Ms. Scanlon, all in favor? That's unanimous. There is a need for a .2 addition of physical therapy. Do we need any explanation on that? Nope. So do I have a motion to accept H? Mr. Farfalia, Mr. Harrington, all in favor? That's unanimous. Okay, we'll move into personnel reports A and B. Do we need executive session to discuss anything in either one of those two? No? Okay, do I have a motion to accept A and B as a group? Mr. Schuster, Mr. Marizio, all in favor? That's unanimous. Then, do I have a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of hearing a parental appeal of a superintendent's decision, to review a previous parental appeal of a superintendent's decision, and to receive an update on negotiations with the maintenance and operations, teacher aid bargaining units, and to review the employment record of 4 individuals with action to follow on the parental appeal of the superintendent's decision, and possible action on the review of a previous parental appeal of a superintendent's decision. Do I have a motion? Ms. Scanlon, Mr. Marizio, all in favor? That is also unanimous. Participation in government students, anybody with a pen can sign your papers, and you guys are free to go.
Be happy to sign.
Think you will?
I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry it's messy.
I don't know, so that's your teacher.
Thank you, Matt.
No, this is,
Oh, it's okay with me.
teacher organization, so if you at the school, you'll see, like, if you go to a school website,
So where am I signed by the X? Okay.
This would be the Board of Education.
Yep.
Thank you.
Can't read the first name.
And then it will be
Thank you, Joanne. Take care.
Bye, Tara. Be careful driving. Have fun, huh?
Line up over there, boy.
I guess they recognize Don's
Yeah, they must like him better than us. There you go. Here comes the guy, my wife, Elijah.
like me to do it.
Thank you, Elijah.
I have a pen. You have a paper.
No, I'm just here.
There you go, yep.
I'm certifying that you were here. You're legitimate. You're good.
This is a different form, okay?
Guys, we can help.
Oh, that's the
Anybody
yellow
can
one.
sign for you.
Signature wheel.
Put it down there.
There you go.
Thanks.